Alright, hi guys. This is my second semester book report about The Sound and the Fury. So, The Sound and the Fury was written by William Faulkner and was originally published in 1929. It follows the tragic story of the Compson family, a once highly sophisticated former Southern aristocratic family who now face financial ruin, death in their family, and deal with the loss of their religion. The book is divided into four distinct sections, and each section has a corresponding narrator. So, the narrator of the first section is Benji Compson, and the thing that you need to know about him is that he's a 33-year-old cognitively disabled man. So, this portion of the book focuses on his struggle, which is bringing shame to his family because of his disability, and is written in such a way that could be difficult to read because it's written through his disability. So the timeline jumps around and the narrative isn't always clear, but it makes the book much more interesting and it really gives you a sense of that character. The second part is written from the point of view of both Katie and Quentin Compson, the two oldest of the family, and it talks about their relationship. So Quentin's part of the book focuses mostly on how his life used to be and then the events leading up to his suicide, and Katie's portion of the book talks about her transition from pure to promiscuous and how that played a role in Quentin's suicide. The third part is written in the point of view of Jason Compson IV, the youngest son of the Compson family named after their father. It talks about how he became in charge of the family's finances after his father's death, and you see him transition into this kind of bitter and cynical, manipulative person just because he has all of the power with the family's money. The fourth part of the book is written in a third-person omniscient view, but the character attached to this is named Dilsey. So Dilsey is one of the family's black servants, and it talks about everybody's thoughts and everybody's feelings as at the very beginning of the story. And this part's interesting because even though it has a character attached to it, you still see everything. So let's dive into analysis. So the theme that I found in relation to the book was corruption of Southern aristocratic values. So because they used to be aristocrats, they had these perfect, ideal expectations where the men were morally strong and very gentlemanly and ready to defend the family's honor. And women were pure, ultra feminine, and very, very graceful. And the only time they weren't a virgin was when they were married and starting a family with a man. However, the reality is that the men are bitter and cynical, and the women are impure and devious throughout the book. And this brings shame to the family, which also destroys the idea that the men are ready to defend the honor of their family. In relation to being pure, symbols that I found were water and natural smells. Now, this mostly corresponds to Katie's character because she is this once very pure virgin girl who becomes sexually promiscuous. So, water and natural smells are very purifying and cleansing in the book. And if you read it, you'll see that Benji often says, Katie smelled like trees. So this is important because since she smelled like trees and leaves and these nice natural smells, it related to her purity. So once she became more devious and kind of promiscuous, she started wearing this honeysuckle perfume, which was overwhelming in Benji's section. So not only does her part of the book talk about her transition from pure to impure, but also his has several strong hints about her transition. So the point of view, as I said, changes with each section. the characters change and the timeline changes, so the timeline jumps around and each narrative is different, and it's interesting to see each family member's perspective of the family. And it's not until the final section, the fourth section, where we're introduced to everyone's thoughts and feelings all at once. So the conflict that I found was man versus man and man versus self. And the examples that I took were from the second section with Katie and Quentin. So man versus man conflict comes when Quentin and Katie are disputing about how it's Quentin's job to keep Katie pure, but she can be her own woman, and so they argue, and Quentin's conflict becomes man versus self because he feels personally responsible for her not being pure anymore. So things that I thought were challenging about this book was the change in point of view, not necessarily between sections, but just within sections themselves. Like I said, Benji's section was kind of difficult to follow because it was written from the perspective of somebody with a disability, and so the narrative wasn't always clear, it wasn't always linear, the timeline did jump around. However, it did add to the style of the book. It was interesting to see each character's different perspectives because each of them felt differently about the family, about their reputation and about their ideals and just about their lifestyle altogether. And the other thing about lifestyle is that we don't necessarily know what it was like to be Southern aristocrats in the 1930s. So that made the book interesting within itself because the conflict is so much different than the way that our lives are now. I really enjoyed reading the book because it's just so different. So that's The Sound and the Fury. I hope you'll consider reading it. Thanks so much. Bye, you guys.